Television show coming to you live from our Denver, Colorado Internet Television studios. We are right now streaming on YouTube Live as well as Hangouts, and also streaming live on ConsciousEvolutionMedia.com. I'm your host, Coach Steve Toth. I also am the founder of Conscious Evolution Media for a little bit over 10 years, and we have an absolutely fascinating guest with us this evening. I've been really looking forward to spending some conscious time with Harvey Kraft. He is an author, a spiritual archaeologist, and many more. And he's joining us from California. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Steve. So good to be here with you.
It's an honor and it's a pleasure to have you here. And if I take away, Harvey, the title of author, spiritual archaeologist, and anything else that anybody has ever called you, what's left? Who is really Harvey Kraft?
Harvey Kraft is a person who's been searching for meaning on a grand scale for his entire life. And I think that pretty much says it. Conscious evolution, when I first saw that term related to your media, I immediately related to it because I so much have believed in that framework for my entire life, that we are evolving beings and we have the opportunity to evolve. And so I've taken that opportunity from the time I was a young man growing up in New York City, always searching for becoming more conscious, and I took me a whole lifetime, but I eventually wrote a book about that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I have been on probably on a similar journey. I'm finding that a lot of us that are attracted to each other, and really, truthfully, the way these shows occur is through the laws of attraction. We attract each other, and amazing things happen. And I'm finding that, after doing more than 15,000 shows, that we are really, it's proof to me that we are really not so much different. Even our stories are very similar.
Yes, my story really is one in which I first encountered Buddhism when I was 18 years old. So I was fascinated by it because essentially it was a philosophy of life rather than a religion as I understood it to be. So I didn't have to give up anything in order to study it. And I've been studying for 45 years, a very difficult thing to do. To study Buddhism, because it's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. There's a lot of pieces. A lot of pieces of Buddhism come from various countries, and so most Buddhists only know some piece of Buddhism. I was fascinated by, well, what's the entire story? What's the whole thing all about?
Yeah.
And that's why it's taking me a lifetime to try to research that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So that has probably made you a master, because I also am learning that if somebody spends more than 10,000 hours or 10 years researching something, they become a master of it.
Yes, I totally agree with that, except that I'm a little uncomfortable with the word master.
Okay.
I prefer student.
Okay.
So I've been a student for 45 years.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you, because I believe that, and I have a problem with the word believe. So, but I don't have a better word for it. So we are both, I feel, on and off. We are students and teachers, on and off, constantly. Just like that I'm learning and being aware that I'm going in and out of consciousness all the time. Mm-hmm. So I haven't gotten to the place of enlightenment, although I had some very, very interesting experience, and I'm very interested in hearing yours. But tell our viewers a little bit about what what really motivated you, and what's the passion that you have behind studying Buddhism, and what made you write that book, The Buddha from Babylon?
Well, it's been years in the making, but there was a tremendous turning point in my life, and that happened 16 years ago when I lost my daughter. She was 23 years old at that time, and she had a heart transplant operation after there was an infection in her heart, and sad to say that we lost her at that point. And this was, with all the study of Buddhism about life and death, when the rubber meets the road and you actually face the reality of it in your life, especially when you lose your child, and such a magnificent child she was, 23 years old. She was a beautiful singer and entertainer, and very much encouraging, always encouraging me to do more in terms of communicating Buddhism. So I, from that point on, decided that the way I'm going to live the rest of my life is to allow her inspiration to take root in me and pursue a research unlike anything anybody else has done. And consequently, I am now considered a radical provocateur in the Buddhist world, because the research that I came up with actually changes the way many people think about Buddhism.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting, and actually what I'm feeling to interject with right now is that we have more and more, and I know you don't care for the word master, but I'm going to use it again. So we have people with mastery that come to our network, and I am no longer interested in people's opinion, because if people want to hear people's opinion, they can turn on commercial radio and commercial television. They get tons of it there. I am interested in people like yourself that have actually done the research and can back up what you are disclosing to us, and also with data, and also with the fact that you happen to be one of those people, I believe, that more and more are turning up, that you walk the talk.
I thank you for that, Steve. I did do 15 years of research for this book, and it took 3 years to write. It's a book that's over 500 pages and is not just about Buddhism. It really is about how human beings have developed over our entire history to be able to see the unseen, which is a gift that many times we overlook because we rationalize it away. The Buddha represents a person who lived 2,500 years ago, whose visionary capacity was so magnificent that he was able to articulate an infrastructure of existence, including how the universe came to be, who human beings are, why are we here in the first place, what is the psychological software that we're involved with, and what is this thing called vision? Is it fantasy or is it reality? All of these very deep and profound questions he was able to address as an individual human being. What I found is that rather than the traditional story of the Buddha coming in an isolated situation into the forest and sitting and meditating and achieving enlightenment, that there are perhaps 14, 15 lost years in the story that is told. And during that time, he was already the most brilliant man in the world. And he was the chief of the Magi in Babylon, where astronomy and philosophy and mathematics came to be. Even though we give the Greeks credit, there is evidence that the early Greeks went to Mesopotamia and learned from the Magi, and also that there was a coup and a purge in Babylon that sent the Magi going in all directions, including India on one side and Greece and Egypt on the other side. So much of the religions that we have today are all rooted in a common area. And so the book itself really covers all the ancient religions and how they interacted with one another, because they were all searching for a common truth of existence.
Wow, fantastic. Well, I haven't had a chance to read your book, but as you speak, I am touched, moved, and inspired to do it. And at the same time, I wanted to share something with you and with the viewers, is because what we're doing on these shows is we really are making an attempt, sometimes better, sometimes not so good, but we make an attempt to show people what it's like to live in the present moment, because I feel that consciousness lives in the present moment, and a lot of people live from the past or live from the future, or both. And the way, and I just wanted to let you know and the viewers to know what's going on with me while you were just speaking. So I felt energy in my spine. I felt vibration in my spine. I still have goosebumps from some of the things that you just said. And so what this means to me is, this is telling me, it's like a flag that tells me whose presence I am in, and that we are both connected to a source right now, because the only time I'm getting these indications is where I am in the presence of someone like you, and both of us are connected to the source. Is that congruent with what you've been finding in your research?
Yes, I think one of the most wondrous things is that there is an interfaith aspect to everything that I'm saying. I am not selling Buddhism. I'm not selling a religion. What I'm saying is that there is a truth to all of existence. And the Buddha was more than just a statue or a person we can quote with quaint types of sayings, which are very nice, but it isn't what he had in mind. What he had in mind was to be able to put forth an understanding of human beings being essentially Buddhas, that all human beings were, at their core, enlightened, but because of the mortal veil, the moment we are born, we lose sight of who we are. And a program goes into place, a software of various kinds of conditions that we then operate inside of. So there is a matrix in reality as far as Buddhism is concerned. Now the question is, can you become conscious of the fact that you're operating in that, and therefore be able to connect with your universal mind, which is what you're talking about, Steve?
Yes.
Because that universal mind connects us all.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is like, oh my God. So Harvey, yes, and this is the thing I'm called to say right now is there are two important events in our life: the day when we are born, and the day when we finally figure out why we were born.
Yes, beautifully said. And there is a great deal to that subject that is covered in the Buddha from Babylon, because ultimately that's the revelation, is the who are we part, the true self. True self is not the ordinary self that is Steve or Harvey. Okay,
Yes.
that is our...
We are much more. We are much more than that.
Yes, so there is an omnipresent true self, which we all share universally, which some people can call God, ultimate Buddha, or whatever. And in this book, I showed the Buddha channeling that ultimate Buddha or God. And you can imagine how I felt when I first ran across this in the Buddhist sutras, and it's like, okay, the Buddha is channeling the ultimate divine source for about 10 minutes. Now, if God had 10 minutes to talk, what would he be talking about? And that's one of the fascinating aspects of writing about a subject like this, is to be able to share
Yeah.
that with people.
Well, what's automatically coming to me is God doesn't care about 10 minutes, because as far as God is concerned, time doesn't exist, and we are proving that on these shows, because when we're operating in the present moment and we are conscious, time and space disappears. Like I'm finding on every one of these shows that I start them, and before I know it, within just minutes, it occurs to me like minutes, the show is over.
Well, you just channeled the Buddha, because that's exactly what he said. Because all of this takes place in
Oh my God.
a
So,
portal
yeah.
that where relativity doesn't exist. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's one of the cosmologies of Buddhism that's covered in the book.
Fantastic. So I'm just running these things by you because it's taking me the last more than 10 years to get to where I am, and I'm sure there is some kind of a scale of consciousness, and I don't know where I'm at. Not that it really matters right now, but I just want to run some things by you because I'm sure that you have reference points to share with me and with the viewers that what I'm saying is accurate or not. So one of the other things that we've been doing on this network is calling people to come back to the self.
What do you mean by that, Steve?
What I
When you
mean
say
by
self?
what I mean by coming home is I'm remembering when I was born and how pure and beautiful and how fantastic, peaceful, um, and compassionate I was. And these are terms, these are concepts. I probably didn't even know that, but in a way, I remember when I was a kid, I had no fear. I didn't even know what fear was. All I knew is that life was wonderful, and then people taught me to forget all that, and taught me all kinds of other things to put in its place, including beliefs, including things that I bought hook, line, and sinker that wasn't my truth whatsoever. So what I'm referring to when I say self is to come home to everybody's own truth. Like people follow Buddha, people follow Christ, people follow whatever. What I'm saying is I don't want people to follow me. I want them to follow themselves, the real self, who they really are, the unlimited possibility.
Well, of course, this is very difficult to do.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
the challenge is so tremendous, which is why people use prayer and use meditation and use chanting and surround themselves in some way in which they can get in touch with something deeper that is spiritual within them. That said, we still have to deal with the world that we live in, and so we find ourselves constantly having to battle ourselves. We have all kinds of influences all around us. We live in a relative universe. That means that everything is a relationship. We are relationship beings, and as long as we have relationships, things are going to be changing all the time. And within all of that change, to find our core essence is a very, very difficult thing to do. It goes beyond some kind of an intellectual understanding. It's the core essence of what it means to be alive. And in that respect, when we talk about God or Buddha and so on, really what we're talking about is life itself. And life is what enlightenment is. As long as you're alive, Steve, you're enlightened with life. So it goes beyond the consciousness.
Yes,
Life
yes.
itself.
And as long as I don't, and as long as what I want to add to that is, as long as I don't create a requirement that in order for me to be to be peaceful, compassionate, and be in harmony and be happy and joyful, there are no other requirements other than just to be open to be open to it, and to be it. Uh, like, I don't know how else to relate to this other than in the life before I became awake and conscious, I was a list maker, and I made all these things on a piece of paper that I got to have all these things before I can be peaceful, compassionate, be in harmony, be joyful, be happy. And I found that as soon as I got to the end of the list and achieved all those things, I tear it off and I start a new list, and it's a carrot in front of me that would never go away. So I stopped making the list, and I made a choice, a conscious choice, to learn about who I really am. And that required me to pretty much like give up the world as I knew it, and I pretty much locked myself into a 10 by 10 room to be with myself, which is something I could never do before. For the first time in my life, over 10 years ago, I was able to be with myself without some other human being, and to actually look inside and figure out who I am, like really, like what am I about, and what really makes me tick, and what am I passionate about. And it became very clear that what I was passionate about is broadcasting. So I created this internet television network over 10 years ago when people didn't even know what it was. But here's the interesting thing is that Buddhism had a part of it, because I became, for the last 30, 40 years, a personal development junkie, basically. I was searching, I was looking for all these shiny objects, and I picked up a lot of them, and I found that the answers were not in the shiny object. I learned a lot, and probably where I am today has a lot to do with it, but the answers were inside of me all along. I just never asked the question. I forgot about me. I was tuned to the external world for all my happiness and joy and answers, where it was within me all along, but I missed out on listening to myself. Does that make sense?
It sounds like you became aware that you didn't own the things, but the things owned you.
Yes. my 740 or whatever it was BMW owned me. I didn't really own it.
Yes. So once again, I think you mirror the path that Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha, took. He was born a prince. He was obviously born to an aristocratic family where he could have absolutely everything his heart desired. And yet he transforms himself to become a king of wisdom who is leading a bunch of people whom he calls nobles, even though none of them have anything. Not food, not clothing, not a house, nothing. I mean, we would probably feel sorry for them today. But their joy in terms of knowing what existence was all about as it was beginning to enter themselves and fulfill themselves from the inside, the Buddha came up with the understanding that this particular life right here, right now, is but one expression in a multitude of lifetime expressions. Again, outside of the chronological view that we get when we hear about reincarnation, he was talking about not reincarnation, he was speaking of transmigration. And what that meant was that we were all doing this together like a tribe, that we were migrating through various lifetimes, and because of our bonds, we were able to cross from one existence to another. What a wonderful idea to think about that love for another person or your family or the entirety of humanity is so powerful that it can cross life and death.
Wow, that's awesome. So I need you to help me with something. So what I'm really curious about is because you are also very interested in evolution, and so am I. But I've noticed that in terms of our evolution, humanity's evolution, we keep repeating the same stuff, over and over again. And where I see real evolution occurring is with technology. There is incredible things that we've been creating, and I'll give you some examples. Like we created those beautiful buildings in Manhattan. We created um, the airplane. We created um, all kinds of things in terms of technology, including the smartphones. I mean, if you told me, if you showed me this 10 years ago, or maybe 15 years ago, and said, I would have said, what the heck is that? What do you do? What do you do with it? And today people can't live without it. So there's incredible evolution that's occurring with technology, and it keeps going, and it's not stopping anytime soon. But in terms of the human mind and the brain, I'm finding that we haven't changed that much, because most of humanity is still operating based on confusion, manipulation, fear, and force.
Yes. Well, there's a few
They
things.
just they just not they just not have a smartphone to do it with.
Yes. Well, you brought to mind a couple of things that I want to share. One is that when we speak of the universal mind, the best way to define it is that it is where potentials and memories exist together. That means that the past and the future are the two polar ends, and we live in between those two polarities, which means that what we call the present, really, you cannot define the present. It's a mystery, because how long is the present,
A
right? If you
moment,
keep you not even if you
not even
keep
a moment. I
cutting
mean,
that
this is
moment in
yeah,
half, it never ends until you get to
yes,
nothing. All right.
yes,
So what that means is really we exist between past and present, or we
present,
exist between potential and memory.
yes,
Okay, so this paradox of existing in between things is something that is really important to understand, because what we are doing is we are tapping, using what we know in the past, or our memories that exist in the present, and the future which exists in the present, and our potential, and we are developing through our universal mind whatever is potentially possible to develop. In other words, everything that we've got, or that we've created technologically, was there for us to grab. Okay, and it's all part of a single process of evolution that is taking place on a cosmic level. In other words, we're not just evolving, as some people think we've stopped evolving, but we are definitely evolving. Where we are in the evolutionary spectrum right now is that we're moving from instinctually driven evolution to a directed level of evolution. In other words, we are now moving into that period of time where we have to make the causes, and we have to create our evolutionary progress. So that's why we are beginning to see that technology begin to appear. Well, what we see in the future is that in order for us to be able to manage technology and its impact in our lives, we have to evolve much further in our human capacity to do so, and in terms of becoming more enlightened. Because if the technology overwhelms us, and if our instincts overwhelm us, then the experiment will end rather early.
fascinating. So when I was referring to the present, I'm not defining. I just want to be clear. I'm not personally defining the present in time and space. I am defining the present by what I call being connected or being disconnected.
Yes, that present doesn't have any beginning or end. That present is a cosmic present. It
Right.
doesn't have any time significance whatsoever.
And how I'm managing myself is I'm just noticing, am I connected to this higher power or higher source, and to my heart and to my love? Am I connected or am I not? Because I can predict when I'm not connected, I'm going to be living in confusion, manipulation, fear, and force.
Yes, well, you are connected, Steve. So
Yes, but I'm noticing there are times when I'm not, and
yeah,
it used to be actually the other way. I was mostly disconnected, and time to time I was connected and I felt it, and now it's shifting and changing where I'm more connected and less disconnected. So it's kind of interesting. But operating, what's also interesting is that I locked myself up for a long time in my own house, and I disconnected myself from the public because that's what I felt I needed to do because it's something I never done, and now I am back out in the world, and it's very interesting that the contrast that I'm facing every day, and to not be pulled into this thing that I'm describing as confusion, manipulation, fear, and force when I'm interacting with people. Like you talked about relationships, I'm in relationships with people all day now, not just on the internet TV shows or cable TV shows or the PBS stuff that we do, but I'm in front of people in real life out in the world, and I have so many opportunities to allow my ego to take over, and I'm managing it, I think, pretty well. And what I'm noticing that I'm doing is my frequency vibrates pretty high, that people notice it, and I'm having some incredible experiences where someone today just shared a very important piece of their lives that almost killed them, and it was just an amazing experience because I acknowledged the person to be able to live through that experience, not kill themselves, because a lot of people would rather kill themselves. In this society, when you're worth 50 million bucks and you lose it, uh, people kill themselves over that. And he not only got back on the horse, but in the same business, but he continues on because he's very passionate about that. And actually, in the process, a few of his clients committed suicide because they also lost a lot of money. And it's just a fascinating experience that I'm having, that people's ability to share their truth, and when they go off, for example, I had with the same person, I had a different experience. So this was very touching and very moving. And I had a different experience with him yesterday where he felt under an enormous amount of pressure, and he was full of fear. I felt it. And he was trying to tell me something where we agreed to certain things and how we're going to do things. And he was backing off of the things that we agreed to, and he went to the other side of it because of fear that what we're committing to do may not work because it's so different from how everybody does things. And I felt his fear, and I said, so all this stuff that you just shared with me, where is that coming from? And do you feel the fear? Because I feel it. I feel your fear.
Hmm.
And he said yes, I feel the fear, and it's from my past. And I basically said the best thing you could do, and you don't have to do anything I say, is just to learn how to just let go of this fear and heal that past, because you only partially responsible for some of the things that happen to you. It's not there are certain things that were out of control, outside of your control, and out of control that you're not responsible for. There's part of it that you are responsible for, but not all of it. And this is basically in the finance industry. And I felt, and I shared this with him, that we are all responsible for what happened to the finance industry in 2007, 2008 area. We all had something to do with it as society, and we all got greedy. The customers got greedy, the banks got greedy. Everybody is partially responsible. So now, when you put all that together, there's a huge breakdown, and that's really what happened. And and this could happen to our government. This could happen to our educational system, because things that are not working. Do you agree with this? I'm noticing that I'm talking too much. So do you agree when these things are not working, sometimes the only way to get beyond them is they have to break down completely and start over?
Well, we've been talking up to this point about the profound understanding of being essentially unencumbered by all of life's ups and downs. The same time, of course, there is a great reality, and nothing brings that reality to bear more than when you have a tremendous loss in your life, whether it's the loss of a loved one or it's the loss of your things. It feels like it's the end of the world. And it is so all-consuming, that particular feeling, that human beings mostly either experience an explosion of anger or an implosion of a depression. And under those circumstances, they are essentially in what we would call a state of hell. Okay? People believe in heaven and hell after you die, but the Buddha made it quite clear. It's called samsara, which is conditions of existence in Vedic and Buddhism. But they have descriptions of 33 different kinds of hells. Hot hells and cold hells and cutting hells and ripping hells and all of that. These are all descriptions of psychological conditions that we are in because we are in some way completely engrossed with the world of form that we live in all the time. And therefore the loss or the fear of loss, you can imagine how many people are listening here who haven't lost anything, but who every day are fearful of losing, of being, oh my God, what if I lose my job? What if I, lose anything that I love? That is a preoccupation with most people. So this is what the Buddha was calling suffering, and that we all suffer. We don't need to just feel sorry for the person who's in bad shape, because we're all capable of that hell kind of condition. So,
including the ones that maybe billionaires. A lot of people seem to think because you have so much money that they don't have sufferings, they don't have these issues, and they do.
No one is immune. Absolutely no one. Some people are able to pretend really good. I can't.
Yeah. Or they won't admit it, but they have these same challenges.
Same challenges, and that's why we're always surprised when we hear of a suicide. Say Robin Williams, something like that, a beloved figure, he's famous, everybody loves him, we can't understand. Well, because you're not inside him and you didn't experience his personal hell. But once I mention that, I think everybody can relate, because everybody has had a personal hell of some sort or another. And one wonderful thing about human beings is the courage with which we face all of that more often than not. Very few human beings actually commit suicide, because ultimately there's a voice inside of us that says, keep going, this is not the end yet. And that's the voice to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was there, and when I had to make that choice, and bottom of the barrel. But here's the thing, is that what you're describing is there's always the bad news is the suffering, but the good news is the biggest the suffering, the biggest the breakthrough.
Mhm.
So there's always transformation, including death itself is a transformation. So even if you kill yourself because you just can't take it anymore, it's a transformation.
That's right. At least according to my beliefs, it's never over. So it's kind of
Yeah.
futile to postpone the work that you have to do to another, situation. You might as well do the work now, because ultimately you're on an evolutionary journey,
You're
and
not
and you
you're
and
not
that means
excused just because you took your life.
you're not excused, and it doesn't mean you're going to go to some terrible place. It just means that you're already in a terrible place. Uh,
Wow. Yeah. So Harvey, what is life's deepest meaning and purpose?
oh, you gave me the easy question.
Hmm.
Life's deepest meaning. One of the Buddhist sutras is named the Sutra of Innumerable Meanings. And that what that means is that every single human being is one of the universe's most wonderful meanings in and of itself. And the meaning of existence, or the meaning of life, is how beautiful the entirety of life is, how diverse, how dynamic, how opportunistic it is for all of us to develop, because ultimately what we are on is a journey to become enlightened, whether we recognize that or not at this moment. No matter what our condition is, we can evolve and we can devolve as well, because the universe doesn't have a clock that says you got to get this job done by a certain time. So consequently, time is not the issue.
Yeah.
What is important is to discover that all human beings share in this wonderful thing called life. And if you can understand that, that then helps you be able to dedicate yourself compassionately to other human beings. And that could be as easy as saying hello or thank you, or it can be some work that you do. It can be the job you do that brings meaning to other people. But the more you think about others, the more fulfilled you will be without having to try to be.
Mm. Yeah, fantastic. I totally agree with that 100%. It's not about us. And what if I said, and I didn't say this, but what if I said um, that human beings are meaning-making machines, and it doesn't mean anything that it doesn't mean
What was the last part? I didn't quite catch that. Sorry.
anything? People always are asking, so what does that mean? And what does this mean? So what if it didn't mean anything?
Well, I think that there is meaning, whether you want there to be or not. And I think it's pretty obvious that a life lived with meaning and for meaning is a life that is so much happier. So the universe is telling you, by virtue of cause and effect, that meaning does matter
Mhm.
and that meaning does count. And the quality of your life has more to do with whether you feel that your life has meaning, as we just went through this example of someone who loses the capacity to see meaning in their life. Essentially, they feel their life is over.
Mhm.
Okay? The other
Yeah.
side is also true. The more meaning you have in your life, the greater the expansion of your consciousness as a result, and consequently, the greater the fulfillment and happiness that you can then bring to bear to, for other people to enjoy and spread that. Because life is very diverse. Life cannot be stopped. We're looking at the universe now. Scientists are looking around and going, oh my goodness, we don't have evidence of life being everywhere, but it looks like life is probably everywhere. And so when we look at the Buddhist sutras and we see that the Buddha is saying 2,500 years ago that there are Buddhas in other worlds, in other dimensions, all teaching the same idea of this evolution towards enlightenment, we get this tremendous scope of existence, and we kind of see that it's not about there being other aliens on other planets, but that we ourselves are cosmic travelers with a purpose and a meaning.
Awesome. So the theme of the show has been really exploring the power of new possibility. So how could we be of assistance or viewers how to explore the power of new possibility? And one of the things that I meant to say earlier that I think is needed right here is what has helped me to be able to grow and evolve every day is that I'm open. I have an open mind for what you have to say, what somebody else. I'm always open to learn. I'm always open for new possibility because I am no longer really even that much interested of what I know anymore. I'm interested in what I don't know that I don't know.
Well, I've been on that search myself, and as I did the research for it, I wrote a book. Now, some people say, well, it's a book, has a lot of words in it, and so I don't like a lot of words. I want to be able to understand things by osmosis. Well, look, we got to do the work, whatever that work means to you. Whether you could do the work by reading a book that might inspire you, or it might inform you of certain things that you don't know. Perhaps you're a religious person of one sort or another, or you're an atheist. It doesn't really matter. You need to work at understanding not only yourself, but the world around you, your history, why you think the way you do. Don't just buy what you've learned so far, because a lot of it is misleading you in a different direction. So you need to try to always explore. And as long as you're exploring and you're digging, you're in good shape.
So how do people actually? That's a good point. How do people filter out what's misinformation? Because and this is the byproduct of the internet, and the byproduct of the information age is that now we have more information that we don't know what to do with, and you can ask a question just about anything, and you can research it on the internet, and you can find half the people will argue for it, the other half will and have proof, and the other half of people will argue against it and will have proof as well.
Well, I'm also running, in addition to that, I'm also running into a situation where there's a lot of people who are just saying, well, this stuff is too profound. I can't deal with profound. That's because we have a culture right now that is so wants everything right now.
It's the only thing I can deal with, Harvey. The only thing I can deal with is I gotta feel it, and
Yeah.
I have to, the way I filter it is it has to feel good to me, and I am at all times connected to my intuition, and if my intuition tells me that this is it. And I just described earlier to you, sometimes I feel it energetically in my body, but I get indications that this is the right thing. And if I don't get it, I won't do it. I won't go there.
Right. But Steve, many people are not quite at the place where you've worked very hard to get to. You've done the work to get to this spot. There's many of us who have not done the work. We've avoided the work. We just did whatever it takes to sort of get by today. And consequently, we're not there. So when I use the word work, people go, like Maynard G. Krebs,
What are you talking about? I have to
they're
work?
allergic. Yeah, they're allergic to that word, So I'm saying it might take some work to read a book like the Buddha from Babylon, but believe me, it's going to be work that will be fruitful to you, because it's not somebody telling you how to be or what to believe. It's information that you can use to transform yourself. And that kind of work is what each of us has on our plate, and we are responsible for ourselves. And before we can do anything for anyone else, we certainly have to put some work into expanding our own consciousness, and that includes understanding why we think the way we do, and challenge our own thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I remember 10 plus years ago when I started this, I was pretty awful at it. I don't even want to go watch shows that I did 10 years ago because it disturbs me. But at the beginning, I was faking it. I, I just knew, I just had this idea that this is something I had to do because I resonated. That's the word. I resonated with it, and it was calling me to be. But at the beginning, my shows didn't turn out like the one with you today, where I'm completely with you. There's no distractions. There's no conversations in my head telling me, oh, okay, well, my grandkids are here downstairs. I got to hurry up, finish the show, blah, 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 blah. I have to do my laundry later on tonight. None of that stuff is going on, which used to go on a long time ago. I couldn't, and people tell me these days that they can't stop the conversation. And that was one of the things that drew me to Buddhism, because I did check it out. I did check out a lot of things. But one of the things, what drew me to Buddhism is the silence and the energy and the frequency that the people were always vibrating. That's what drew me to them.
Yeah, so the key to that is the second part. One thing, which is frequency. One thing that people tend to think about Buddhism is it's associated with silence, which is very important in one sense. This quiet of the mind, quiet of the chatter that goes on. So part of meditation is to be able to actually lift yourself to a level of consciousness that just observes your mind just going on and on and on and on, right? Mm-hmm. And once you observe that, as you have done, then in essence you sort of discover, oh, there is another mind that I have mm-hmm. that can watch this mind of mine chatter like a monkey. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's one of the things. But as you progress from that part and you discover that there is this other mind now is all about harmony and alignment and synchronicity and being really aligned with nature and aligned with other human beings and being present as we described earlier. Yeah. So,
and also, Harvey, also you discover that you can control the monkey.
Yes, well, you can certainly control it, as you say, but once you begin to really focus on being in harmony, that almost disappears. Sometimes people try to control that mind to a fault. In other words, they begin to detach. They say, oh, if I stop thinking, or if I detach myself from what's going on in life, then this stuff won't bother me anymore. And that really sometimes can create an inner separation within yourself, which can be a problem too.
Actually, I'm wrong. I'm wrong about that, Harvey, so thanks for reminding me. Actually, in the process I was trying to control it, the more I tried to control it, the more I did not succeed. When I gave up the fact that I wanted to control it is when it all of a sudden stopped. I mean, I went through a 2-week period when my mind was completely blank. I completely freaked out, and not at the beginning I didn't freak out, but after 2 weeks I began to ask the question, is this going to last forever? And as soon as I said that, it stopped.
Yes. That's well said. I'm glad you had that revelation just here.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Because I'm not really controlling anything. I mean, this is just now just a way of being, really.
Yes, and I could just feel the lovingness and the joy of being that you exude as a result of being free from that, ever chattering mind, which usually has a lot of fear in it. Let's face it.
Hmm.
I mean,
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
most
Yeah, it's a
most of the
concept.
most of that is about what can happen,
Hmm.
5 minutes from
What
now
what
or
can
a
go
year from
wrong?
now.
Who do you
What
think
can
you
go
are? Who do you think you? Who do you think? Who do you think you are having a conversation, a conscious dialogue with Harvey Kraft, who has studied the Buddha from the last 20, 30 years? Who do you think you are? I don't have that anymore. If
Yeah,
it's
it's
funny.
silly,
It's just
isn't it?
it is
It's
just funny. It is just funny.
Yeah, whether you're judging yourself or you're judging other people in some kind of a made-up hierarchy. And in
Mhm.
India, they had the caste system. This notion of the caste system was built on the idea that some people were more evolved at birth because of their bloodlines. Okay, and so according to bloodlines determined evolution.
The
Well,
DNA.
yes, that has not been a very effective system. The fact is that we are not evolving based on bloodlines, even though we know genetically there are certain attributes that we might have, but from the standpoint of our enlightened core self, we're all on the same line all the time. We're either conscious of the fact that we have a divine essence within us that isn't limited by time, space, and dimension, or we don't. And those that have done the work and have explored that possibility uh, have something very, very special to give to others and share that.
Yeah, fantastic. And you certainly possess all of those you just described. So I would love to have you have this possibility to share with our viewers where can they get your book, The Buddha from Babylon, and anything else that you would like to share with them, including your website.
Thank you so much. My website is Buddha from Babylon, uh, Buddha from BABYLON.com. And there's information there. And there's also a link to Amazon, or you could just go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or ask your local bookseller. The book's name is The Buddha from Babylon, The Lost History and Cosmic Vision of Siddhartha Gautama is the subtitle. And it's published by Select Books, New York. And I'm the author, Harvey Kraft, and you can get in touch with me on my website. So again, BuddhaFromBabylon.com, and I'd love to hear from people and get their point of view on what we discussed today or whatever else they want to talk about. And also, just so you know, I mean, I'm out there speaking and working with businesses and individuals to help them come to a better understanding.
Absolutely fantastic, Harvey. So I wanted to really acknowledge you for doing the research and the work that you have done, and and I'm absolutely certain that what you're putting out to the world is changing people one at a time. And my most sincere congratulations for being up to what you're up to, because it takes something, and it actually takes a lot to do what you have done and what you continue to do. So thank you very much for being on the network and sharing your wisdom and your research with the viewers. And I'm sure we could go on for many, many hours, and maybe we'll entertain doing more shows. But I want to make sure that the viewers know if anything that Harvey talked about or I mentioned here and there has touched, moved, and inspired you, continue to watch our shows. Now we have moved all of our shows to 7 p.m. Mountain Time in the evening, so we are now a network happening on the same time, same place, just to keep the confusion out of the picture. So Eastern Time, 9 p.m. every day, and Mountain Time, again, 7 p.m., and Pacific Time, 6 p.m. So keep coming back and keep watching these incredible shows. The more you watch them on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, the more they move up to the top 10, and the top 10 then will qualify to go to public television. So thank you so much, Harvey. You've been absolutely fantastic. I enjoyed immensely every moment.
Thank you so much, Steve. It was an honor.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.